over to Valentina Gonzalez, who, like I said, she probably doesn't need introduction. She is the sweetheart of Twitter and everything. Multilingual learners, we're hanging on her every word all of the time. And so we are so grateful that she has offered to volunteer her time to give us an hour of professional development. And Valentina, again, she's an author of Reading and Writing with English Learners. She is a very sought after consultant, and she's one of the strongest PLN members that you can add to your professional learning network. So Valentina, without further ado, can you go ahead and get us started?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carol. Thank you for that sweet, very sweet, kind introduction. I am thrilled to be here with you all. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for inviting me to be part of the ML Summit again this year. I know I've been in some capacity a part of Virtual in the past few years, and I especially want to thank Carol and Ton and Katie for all of the work they do every year to put this amazing event together. And every year it just gets better and stronger and bigger. And so if you haven't been to the past, it was called Virtual, go back and rewatch some of those sessions because they are amazing professional learning. The three of them do so much for our community, our PLN, and I am just grateful. So thank you, Carol. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Ton. I know Ton's not here right now, but thank you. And Viana, thank you so much for helping out today as well. I'm just so grateful to all of you. And I'm thankful for all of you that are here today in person with us. It's great to see your faces, some faces that I know, some names that I know, and some new names and faces. So I'm honored that you are sharing time with me. It's really special to me to share time together. Time is really the most valuable thing we all have. We can always make more money, but we can't make more time. So I'm grateful for you to be here with me. Today we're going to talk about valuing multilingual newcomers language and literacy. And so for those of you that don't know me, you don't know who I am, I'm Valentina Gonzalez, as Carol mentioned, and I'm a longtime educator and advocate for English learners. I've taught in classrooms, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, as a reading and writing teacher, and as an ESL co-teacher and a pull-out teacher of newcomer students. And my favorite role was working with newcomers that came to our school from Japan and Korea and Russia, from all over the world, and brought assets to our classroom. That was my favorite thing to do. So anytime we had a new arrival, a new student, I wanted to work with them. I was like, give me that student. Let me work with that child, because I was eager to be part of their education and to learn from them as well. And so let me share a little bit about what brings me to this topic today. My family and I were once newcomers too. We immigrated here from the former Yugoslavia when I was just a toddler. And in our home, we only spoke Serbian for the longest time. And though we didn't have books in our home, my family told stories. We told stories to one another. And so even though we didn't sit on mom and dad's lap and turn the pages of a book, we cuddled up next to each other. And my parents told us the stories they remembered from their childhood. And one of my favorite stories that Dad would tell us was Hansel and Gretel. Anytime he asked, what do you want to hear? I would say Hansel and Gretel. And I think it was because I love the little fear factor within that story. And I'll never forget the first time the teacher in my elementary school read Hansel and Gretel to our class in English. And it was like fireworks went off in my brain, because I knew that story. Only I knew it because my dad told me that story at home in Serbian. And now the teacher I admired so much and I looked up to was telling the same story to my class, my peers, in English, this new language I was learning. And before then, Serbian never came to school and English didn't go home. And suddenly this bridge was building between the two languages I knew. And it was a miraculous moment. You know, reading wasn't my favorite thing when I was in elementary school, but this was one of my fondest and earliest memories about literacy and language. As I continue to go through school, I do have memories about feeling like I needed to fit in and feeling like I needed to hide my Serbian side. There were times that I tried really hard to shed my cultural differences. And I wish I could go back and whisper to my young self, be who you are, be yourself, be unique. Your differences are your superpowers. Being bilingual is a gift. But back then, I didn't recognize those gifts. And now I work very hard to share this with the students that I serve, with the families I work with, and with any educator that will listen. So these are the critical questions that I ask myself when I work with students and educators and families, and as I plan instruction. The first one that comes to my mind is, how do we demonstrate exactly the value we place on newcomers' language and literacy? And secondly, what resources do we have to help multilingual students make great progress in listening, speaking, reading, and writing? What is around our students that can help them to acquire English while preserving their heritage or primary language? And finally, how can we change the narrative in our classrooms to make great progress? Students are going to change no matter what we do, but we want to be intentional about the changes that happen in language and literacy. So as we work today during our short hour together, I want you to think about yourself as a learner. I know you're intelligent. You know you're intelligent. Everyone here has great intelligence. You are very capable. You're capable. You have gone to college. You have lived experiences. You have background. You can learn. You have done tremendous things in your life. You can listen, speak, read, and write. Now, think about this. Imagine you move to a place where the language is brand new to you. Just let that sink in for a minute. What would you want? What would you need? Type into the chat for me. What do you think you would want and need in a classroom where the language is new to you? Because I'm going to put you in that position for a moment. So I'm curious to know, what do you feel like you would want and need in my classroom? If you're watching in replay, please feel free to pause for a moment and just jot down some ideas before we continue. All right, so let's see. Put yourself in the shoes of a newcomer student in my classroom where the language is new to you. Now, without using any technology, I'm asking you to read this on your own. Just take a moment. Now, this should be very easy for you because this is at about a first or second grade level. So it should be easy and it shouldn't take you long. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. Quickly. No dictionaries, no support. All right, that should be enough time. So, how do you feel right now? Please type in the chat. And what do you know about what you read? How's that working for you, right? Let me take a look at the chat for a moment. Ooh, okay, so what I'm seeing in the chat, and for those of you that are watching in replay, just to let you know, people are feeling lost, confused, dumb, not smart. And these are not feelings we want our students to have in our classroom. And I gave you a very small excerpt from a text, extremely small. I don't believe I did much to value the language and literacy you have as cognitively capable individuals. So let's move forward a little bit. Let me see if I can support you with the language and literacy you have. All right, let's continue. So, one thing I want to tell you about this new language you're learning is that the letter C in this new language makes the sound TS in your primary language. Let's pretend for, in this instance, that your primary language is English. It may not be, but in this case. So this language, the C says tss. Look at the way my mouth is forming when I say this sound. Tss. Pretend I have magic ears. Say it with me. Tss. All right. So the word here is matzah. Matzah. Read with me. Matzah glada. Matzah glada. Very nice. I heard you. Very nice. Let's keep going. Let's read a little more. Here we go. Matzah glada kroz prozor. Matzah glada kroz prozor. Nice. Now, how's your comprehension? Any better? Still no, right? That's because what we know is that reading is a combination of decoding and comprehension. In this case, you already can decode. You are decoders. You have unlocked that key to decoding, but you don't have the vocabulary necessary to comprehend in this language, and you need both. I have to support your vocabulary as language learners in this new language that you're learning. So let me continue a little bit more. I'm going to give you a little bit more of a scaffold. Remember, scaffolds are not meant forever. They're only meant until the student no longer needs them. So let me see if I can unlock vocabulary and then remove it when you no longer need it. All right, here we go. Let's continue. Matzah. Matzah. So type in the chat, what are you understanding? Matzah. Matzah. Yes, very good. Matzah. Glada. Matzah glada. What is the cat doing? Matzah glada. Okay, let's continue adding a little bit more. We're going to continue. Matzah glada. Kroz. 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 Prozor. Prozor. Matzah glada kroz prozor. Matzah glada, read with me. Matzah glada kroz prozor. Very good. I see you're comprehending. Let's continue adding a little bit more now. Look, same sound. We're adding to the phoneme now. Matzah, kutsa. Kutsa. Same sound that matzah had, right? We're focusing in on that phoneme. Kutsa, glada, kroz, prozor. Reading with me? I see some of you are typing what you understand. Very good. Exactly. All right, let's continue. Read with me. Kutsa, I maca. Gledaju kroz prozor. Let me take a look. What are you understanding? Exactly. Notice no picture. No picture. We removed the scaffold. Look at that. Notice we didn't talk about this word right here, E. We taught this implicitly. We taught it implicitly. Gledaju. I didn't have to teach you conjugating the verb. Again, we're teaching it implicitly. Repetition, implicit instruction, adding more as we continue to learn the vocabulary, unlocking vocabulary through the visuals. I am going to show you now that here we have it. The dog and the cat are looking through the window. Notice that you wrote, most of you wrote the dog and the cat. In this language, there are no articles. Languages vary. English language structures are not the same as Serbian language structures. Language structures vary between languages. I see some of you said the cognate of E in Spanish. What? You are leaning on your primary language? Exactly. We all do this, don't we? We bring our assets, our primary language, into instruction as we learn our additional language. And that's how we invite primary language into our classrooms. We're inviting that in because primary language is a support to learning the additional language. So I'd like to ask you to write in the chat, during this simulation, and select one of these bullets. Thought, felt, or connected to ELs. And then complete that thought. I'll give you a moment to type. If there is anyone who would like to share out loud with the whole group what they typed in and maybe elaborate a little bit on it, would you please type a Y into the chat? And one of our facilitators will unmute you and you can share with our whole group.
How about Robin Morton? Robin, thank you for saying yes. I think you have the ability to unmute yourself. Can you try?
Okay, you can hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I typed in that I felt connected to ELs because I didn't see the scaffolding being built in front of me until the teacher said something. When Valentina said that this was a scaffold and the image was there, I wasn't paying attention to the images, I was paying attention to the words because that's what's going in me. And I connected because I understand that most people don't learn all the time visually. Sometimes they only learn orally by hearing things.
Thank you for sharing that, Robin. That is such a good point and such a valuable perspective that we can really learn from as educators, because not everyone learns the same way. And so we really need to hear a different perspective in the way we take in information and learn from it. Thank you. That's so important. Thank you, Robin. All right, so let's take a look at what we did during that demonstration. Each of us brought in our own background knowledge and experience. Even though you may not have known Serbian, and some of you may have, you were certainly thinking, you were certainly feeling, and you are learning. We are moving the needle a little bit at a time, sometimes faster than others, but you came a long way in just a few minutes. Did you tap into your primary language? Yes. And that is what we want. We want students to know that they can and they should access what they come to us with. Their primary language is an asset and it is welcome in our classrooms. What helped you most? As you read, please type in the chat, what was most helpful to you as we went through that experience? I'd love to know what was most helpful to you. I see the support and scaffolding, visuals, pictures, connecting between visuals and words, knowing the sound of the sea, repetition and visuals, pictures, repetition and visuals. I'm seeing a lot of that as a common theme here. And I would have to agree that when we talk with students that are English learners, that are multilingual, they often say that repetition and visuals are so helpful. Gestures, repetition, and visuals. Recently, Dr. Ewing, Jim, said, we often stress linguistic support. Visuals won't work if ELs don't visualize themselves in curriculum. And so that made me stop and think, let me think about this for a minute, because visuals are so important to us as teachers of multilinguals, but all teachers can capitalize on visuals. Visuals are powerful linguistic supports for every learner, but especially for our newcomers that are acquiring English. However, students need to see themselves in the curriculum in order to feel relevant and connected to the learning that's happening in the classroom. That creates motivation to learn. It creates a sense of, like I mentioned, relevancy in the environment, and a sense of need to want to learn in the classroom as well. And that brings me to relationships. If we are going to honor our newcomers, our students, our multilingual children in our classroom, it all begins with building relationships in the classroom. Knowing students very well, knowing what their passions are, what their interests are, their goals and family life, their academics, as much as we can, will help us to incorporate their lives, their lived experiences into instruction and amplify their student voice and choice into our lesson planning. Instruction is not just about the standards that we have. It's not just about the curriculum that we teach. It's about how children fit into that curriculum and the world around them. We have to begin first with the students every year, and the students change every year. They are different, and so our instruction has to be different as well. Taking all of that into consideration can help us select the perfect resources for the classrooms that are in front of us at the moment. Picking out books that we read specifically for the students that we have, selecting the correct anchor charts, the perfect videos to watch. All of that begins with the students that are in front of us and what's happening in the world around them. Books that students can connect with, resources they can connect with and find themselves in. So I want you to really think about, as you begin the school year, who are the kids around you? Who are their families? What do they need at the moment? These are going to be the critical issues that we face as we're working with our newcomer students. Some really big wins we can make with our newcomer students are wordless picture books and animated short films. These offer the advantage of visuals, which we mentioned are really excellent for our students that are acquiring English. Visuals transcend all languages. We can use this to provide students a pathway to access that content that they need to learn and acquire language. There's so many things we can do with these wordless books as far as having students talk about the pictures and then write about them. Same with animated shorts, because they're so visually responsive, we can tap into those visual aspects and create language-rich experiences. Books in students' primary languages, whenever possible, we can pair up books in students' primary languages with books in English and have students access both the primary language and the book in English, so they're seeing the content and the language acquisition at the same time. I was lucky enough to work with a librarian at my school and acquire books in our students' top languages. So anytime we got funds that we could use on books, we were able to buy numerous books for our school library in our top 10 languages. And so partner up with your campus librarian and see about getting books in students' primary languages. Not only does it help them to feel welcome and that their language is valued, but it helps them acquire English as well as support their primary language. Captions. Turn the captions on anytime you're presenting information. And I hear Carol say this a lot. We need students to have their eyes on text. We want them tracking text as much as possible, and I believe it as well. So if you're presenting on Google Slides or PowerPoint, turn the captions on for students. If it's a video, turn the captions on for students. If they're watching television at home, remind families to turn the captions on. Captions, 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 whenever that's a possibility. Captions are excellent for our multilingual students that are learning to read. So making this content comprehensible means we have to make it accessible to students. Just making our content available is not enough. No matter if we're working with newcomer students or native English speakers, making content available is not enough. We have to make it accessible to them. Just like when we went through the simulation of reading in a new language, the first time I just gave it to you. It wasn't enough. It's not enough just to have it available. I have to model, which I did by reading it with you. I have to encourage you to be part of it. Not force you, but encourage. Make a safe space where you can be part of it. Give target examples, which in that case, again, was just that repetition of what this sounds like. And make sure that I'm giving checkpoints. In our case, my checkpoints were in the chat when I asked you, what are you understanding? And you did it in your primary language because in this case, you were newcomers to the language. I had to give you lots of support. High expectations, but support. And my support was visuals. And my support was allowing you to use and encouraging you to use your primary language. Accessibility features are all around us every day. Sometimes we don't even realize they're around us because it's so naturally built into our daily lives. And we want to do this in our classrooms too. We want accessibility features to feel so natural that they become part of instruction. We don't even notice that they're there, and the students don't either. In daily life, some of the accessibility features we take for granted are things like automatic doors at the grocery store, or adjustable seats in our car. This makes the road accessible to all of us. Back in the day, cars didn't have seats that were movable. The seat was just one position. And if you didn't fit it, well, then you better move your body to fit it. Now, car designers realized everyone needs to see the road ahead of them. Yes, everyone deserves to see it. Our students deserve to see the grade level curriculum. And as lesson designers, we have to make it accessible. We have to be the ones. We are honored to be the ones to make the grade level curriculum accessible to them. And so by creating this support, these visuals, this modeling, this safe space to learn and feel like they belong, and it's risks are okay to take, we create an environment where they can see the grade level curriculum. I think I have time to share the picture word inductive model with you. Carol, can you give me a thumbs up if I'm good on time? Yes, okay. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but this is picture word inductive model is one of my favorite instructional techniques. And if you've seen me share before, you've probably seen me share the picture word inductive model. It's one of my hallmark techniques. I did not invent it. It was actually brought to us by Emily Calhoun back in the late 90s, and she created it for newcomer students. But I've used it, and I know many educators have used it for all students, not just English learners, but multilingual students at all proficiency levels, all grade levels, all content areas. It really is a magnificent technique. And so I do want to share a little bit of it with you. So if you've never seen it before, you can use it. I love to share methods that are very flexible and can be used by any educator with all students. This is a technique that is going to take students from what they come to us with and grow them. And it includes all 4 language domains. So these are just some of the things I love about picture word inductive model. And I'm going to share it with you on Jamboard. If you have my book, Reading and Writing with English Learners, that I co-authored with Dr. Melinda Miller, this is on page 125 of the book. And, sometimes you read a book and you read how to do something, but if you've never seen it before, it's different when you see it live. So I'm excited to really share this technique with you live. I'm going to go to Jamboard, and as I do this, please type in the chat what you notice about this technique. So let me go to my Jamboard. When I do this face-to-face with students, I usually do it under a document camera or a smart board or Promethean board, but my preferred technique is a document camera. So I start with thinking about the curriculum that my students are learning about, the state standards, and I select an image that's related to that unit or theme. And I pull students close together, especially elementary students. With secondary students, they don't like to sit close together on the carpet. That's not their thing, right? So let's pretend I'm in an elementary classroom. I gather them together, and I might say something like this. Boys and girls, remember how we've been studying about bees? Yesterday, I saw a bee in my garden and I took a picture of it. Look at it. This is really in my garden. So I thought we would talk about it and label it together. Let me title it for you, Bees. And so I write this as the title, Bees. Would you turn to your partner and brainstorm all of the nouns that you see in this picture? Remember, a noun is a person, place, or thing. We're not learning about nouns today. I'm just going to review with them very quickly. Person, place, or thing. They already know what a noun is, okay? So they're going to brainstorm quickly with their partner, and I'm going to listen in because I want to gauge where they are with nouns and also their background knowledge about bees. And as they call them out to me, I'm going to write them on the picture. Now, when I write, I'm going to do them one at a time, but you see them on the screen all at once. So I write STEM as they're calling them out to me. Eyes, bee, insect. Now, with early writers and readers, I may stop and really focus in on phonemes or word parts. I might say something like, when they call out flower, I might say, flower. Let's listen to that beginning sound, everyone. What letter are we hearing? And they'll tell me F and I'll write it. What's the next letter? Oh, they'll tell me L and I'll write it. So I may have to focus in on letter sound relationships or phonemes, depending on my students, what the target is for this lesson. We might even say, somebody might call out abdomen and we'll say, let's clap that. Abdomen. Let's say it again. Abdomen. Let's say it to the ceiling. Abdomen. Say it to the floor. Abdomen. Say it to your elbow. Abdomen. Say it to your pencil. Abdomen. Say it like you won the lottery. Abdomen. Say it like a robot. Abdomen. Say it in a whisper. Abdomen. So we're going to say it in a lot of ways. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Now, if they do not call out a word, I need them to know this is when I'm going to bring in that word. Now, boys and girls, this is a thorax. Look right here, thorax. And we'll repeat that word also, okay? Moving on, boys and girls, next we are going to label the adjectives. An adjective is a word that describes a noun and tells which one, what kind, how many. Brainstorm with your partner. They'll brainstorm, I'm listening in, and we're going to label it in a new color. I'm all about color chunking. So I'm going to keep the colors the same all year long. I suggest you go ahead and pick out your colors today. What colors are you going to use all year long for your parts of speech? Stick to those all year, all right? They call them out to me, I label, and we move to verbs next. They brainstorm, we label, and we read all the words. One thing I forgot to say is that after we label each part, we go back and read them together. Choral reading, all the words. So we're reading this so many times that these words become part of their vocabulary. I mean, it becomes part of their listening vocabulary and their speaking vocabulary. And I want you to think about how language is acquired. First language, second language, third language, it always starts with listening vocabulary. Lots of listening vocabulary. And then it becomes part of speaking vocabulary and reading and writing. With multilinguals in our classrooms, that process is sped up very quickly and happens concurrently. So we have to really work hard to get it into their listening, to their speaking, reading, and writing vocabulary. After we've labeled, we move to sentences. I model, and then they try it. boys and girls, I think I want to make some sentences with all these words we wrote. So let me think. The first sentence I want to make is bees are. Let's see. Bees are insects. Yes, bees are insects. But you know what? I think I can make it a more detailed sentence. Bees are tiny insects. Yes, bees are tiny insects. But even though they're so tiny, they're so important. Isn't it funny how they're tiny, but they're really important? Bees are tiny, but important insects. All right, your turn. Try with your partner, starting with bees are. Everyone read with me. Bees are. Turn to your partner. Now, when I have them talk with a partner, I usually designate who's going to go first and who's going to go second, because I don't want there to be any ambiguity or chaos about who's going to go first and second. All right, so we've done our sentences. We move now to writing a paragraph. I model it first. So I'm going to model through a write aloud. This paragraph is not going to magically show up on the screen like it did today. Instead, it's going to be blank here at the bottom, and I'm going to make the writing process become visible to them through a thinking aloud process. I'm literally going to say, boys and girls, I'm going to write a paragraph using all these words we wrote. This is going to be like a word bank. So, you know how we said that bees are tiny but really important? I think that's so fascinating. I want to start with that idea because it's so neat. So let's begin. Let me think. How will I write this? And I'll literally write it in front of them. Though bees are tiny, they are actually very important. Why are they so important? I need the next sentence to tell people why they're so important. Bees pollinate, right? That's why they're so important. Let me write a sentence about that. Bees pollinate crops. So now I'm right here. So now I want to talk about which crops they pollinate. Remember when we read that book about how bees pollinate cherries and blueberries? And I'm going to model how to write these sentences. I want to share with you one more completed example that I love to do at the beginning of the year because it helps build relationships and get to know you type of activity alongside of writing a narrative. So this is one of my family, and we label this picture of my family fishing. And then I model how to write a personal narrative about this fishing trip. Then what they do is they bring their photo or they draw a picture and they use this write aloud that I did right here as a mentor text for their own writing. And for some of them, I'll give them a paragraph frame to do their writing as well. So I'm going to move back to our slide, and I see some of you have been writing what you noticed or just commenting on the ways that you've done picture word inductive model, or just some ideas and tips about picture word inductive model as well. And thank you for sharing your ideas on picture word inductive model. I want you just to think about how this sequence moves from their funds of knowledge, the words they know, and builds on their vocabulary and background. And then when we get to the sentences, we can support their new language structures through modeling and sentence frames and repetition. Then that paragraph part really makes writing visible to students, and they can see what an expert writer is doing. We're not just going through the motions, we're showing them exactly how to write a paragraph in English. And with our newcomers, we can allow them to use their full linguistic repertoire and avoid limiting them to what we feel their writing should look like, but really think outside the box. Allow them to draw and label and use their primary language. Focus on what they can do as writers. Because if we're going to say we value all literacy, then we have to quantify that. And all literacy means literacy in their primary language as well. So I know we're wrapping up. No, we still have a little bit of time, Carol. Are we good still? A little bit of time. Okay.
We have about 10 more minutes or so.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to just debrief this sequence of the picture word inductive model. I know some of you will want to take some snapshots of this so you can remember what this sequence is like. The first thing you want to do is select that image that's relevant to the content or unit of theme. And you're going to label it together as a class, shake out all the words, and think about what your goal is for this lesson, whether it's thinking about letters and sounds or adding vocabulary and content. You're going to model those sentences verbally first before writing, and then provide those sentence stems for the writing process so students can do the writing. And don't forget, lots and lots of choral reading as we move along through the process. Even when we finish that paragraph, we're going to read it together because these are all words that we worked on as we labeled that visual. And that choral reading that we do, repeated reading, has a huge effect size on students. Repeated reading has a 0.67 effect size. And we know that impact is huge on vocabulary and student success. So I want to offer you a few more ideas for accommodating instruction for our multilingual students. One thing, and I've kind of shown you this throughout our time together, is model. Model, model, model. So students know exactly what to expect as learners in our classrooms. Make writing visible for students and make reading visible. Make whatever it is that the goal, what we want students to do, make that visible for them. Modeling through our expectations. Provide examples and targets. Even us as adults, we like to see what the outcome is. If you've ever done something new in your life, you want to see what it looks like in the end before you do it. I think about like when I watch a cooking show, I like to see what the meal is going to look like in the end. I like to see the process too. I need to see it modeled before I do it, and I want to see what the end product looks like. And then I'm going to try it on my own. So even as adults, we all need modeling targets, making that learning visible. Encourage visuals and peer interaction as much as you can. Let them try it with their peers. Let them draw. Let them express their product in any way that they can. Offer sentence stems and sentence starters, paragraph frames to get the inertia out. They may have the thought in their mind, they just don't know how to get it out. And those sentence starters can be just the inertia that they need to push through. Allow that full use of language repertoire and encourage it, in fact. I don't know if allow is the right term, but encourage. Meet with your multilingual students frequently, not just to talk about academics, but to build those relationships and get to know them, especially at the beginning of the year, but really throughout the year. Those relationships, we can lean on them for more than just academic success. And offer wait time. Can't stress wait time enough, right? Wait time is critical for our learners. When we offer a few extra seconds of wait time after asking a question, we increase the quantity and quality of responses. I want you to think about this. when we ask a question in our classroom and we don't offer wait time, and we have students that are multilingual or native English speakers, those that need extra wait time and are not getting the wait time, eventually they receive a message that their thinking is not valued and it's not important, and we aren't going to wait for their answer or response. The more frequently they receive that message, the faster they're going to begin to think that their thinking isn't valued, and they're going to stop thinking in our classrooms. Why should I think if my thinking isn't valued? If I'm never going to need to respond, I'll just stop thinking. And that's a very sad predicament for our students. I know we don't want that to happen. It's not intentional. Wait time can feel very awkward. It's very awkward for us even, but it's a very simple technique, a very simple move we can make with huge impact, big change with a simple technique. So I would even encourage you just to make a sticky note that says wait time or think time, and put it somewhere where you can see it, and just try it out, and remember that the impact, though it seems a little awkward to do, the impact is huge for our learners. I have one final thing for you to do. I feel like I've crammed in a lot here. One final thing. I want you to take out a sticky note if you're watching this in replay, and you're going to write down two things. If you're watching with me live, in the chat, you're going to type two things. First, type one thing that you love and you know a lot about. Second, type one thing that you don't care for and you don't know a lot about it. So two things, one you love, one you don't. So if I asked you to read or write about one of those two topics, which one would allow you to shine more brightly? I'm willing to bet that most of you picked number one. I would bet a lot of money on it, and I bet I would be really, really rich, right? Exactly, because when we allow students to choose, or we choose, what we love and know a lot about, we have background knowledge in it, we have interest in it, we have lived experience or passion about it, and we shine more brightly. And so I want you to think about that as you ask students to read and write this year. Think about, do we want them to shine brightly? Of course. Do we want them to feel confident? Of course. Do we want them to be happy readers and writers? Of course. Student choice and voice matters as readers and writers, and we want them to shine. We want them to feel happy and confident. And we can do that for them. We can create those experiences for them. So put students before curriculum, always, always. They are first and foremost, but without them, we wouldn't even need the curriculum. Keep the content and amplify language, listening, speaking, and reading and writing. Build those relationships and the classroom community. It will be worth it in the end. And here are some additional resources I'm going to leave you with. These have tons of articles, videos and links to popular podcasts that I love. And I want to give you these because I know that in this hour together, we obviously can't go over everything. So if you want to learn more, I'm giving you these so you can have access to them. And on the next slide, which is my last and final slide, I have a link to my Facebook group advocating for ELs. And I'm telling you this right now because I know many of you are probably scanning this QR code. So I want to give you a moment to scan. And the Facebook group on the next slide has over 7,000 members. I know, it's amazing. I love this Facebook group because it is filled with passionate people who want to ask questions and want to learn more and love education and love multilinguals and are so giving and caring. And I created this Facebook group just a few years ago for this reason. I didn't want anyone to feel alone, and I wanted a safe space for people to ask questions when they didn't have anyone else they felt safe enough to ask. So feel free to join. We would love to have you. I want to thank you for your time and thank you for all you do. I genuinely love and care about all of you. Even if I don't know you, I know that I love you because I love what you do. Thank you, Carol, Katie, Viana, Tan. Thank you all. And I hope that you feel validated by something you're already doing because I know you're awesome. And I hope you learned something new, at least one little thing.
So many things, Valentina. Let's give her applause. I know we're on mute, but we can still all applaud. And thank you so much for how much you always give to the field over on Facebook, on Twitter, and things like this that you do for free. I do want to show folks that in the, they're saying such nice things in the chat. And I dropped several times different things where Valentina has, of course, how you can get her book. But also she has a lot of free resources on the book's website. And so that's in the chat right now. And her Padlet that she's sharing with us. And she does have a session coming up. Now, Valentina, that's in Houston on October 29th. People can be with you for a full day of one of your incredible workshops.